Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of the House Judiciary Committee joins me now. You're in California in close contact with your colleagues and making news by saying that you're predicting something completely different will happen with Michael Flynn. Not a sentencing, but what and why?
Well, Judge Sullivan has dealt with this before. You might remember that he picked up the Ted Stevens case only to find that prosecutors had violated the late senator's rights, lied, and withheld information. In this case, he's faced with a similar situation in that he's seeing a general who was lied to and told he wasn't a target, he was basically not needing to worry about Miranda, didn't need a lawyer, so that they could trap him into a lie where they knew something, didn't disclose it, and then asked him a question in order to get him in a situation where they then had leverage on him. So this kind of misconduct can only be held accountable by a federal judge, and this is a federal judge who goes all the way back through three different presidents, and is a no-nonsense judge.
Yeah, it's interesting. How surprised were you to hear James Comey admit that it hadn't been handled correctly with Flynn?
Not a bit. They've been playing fast and loose with how do they get the president for a long time.
So let me step in for 1 second. Do you think he said that because he felt like they got busted on this, or was this just something that was a mistake?
Well, every once in a while he remembers something, and in this case, he apparently remembered that most White Houses would have said, we're not making these people available. They will all be represented by lawyers. There won't be any such thing as just a harmless question. And that appears to be exactly the problem. They took advantage and continue to take advantage of a president who's making information available in an extraordinary way, very different than President Obama. And in this case, there's a real question of, did they get what they want from Flynn? Well, apparently they did, but they did by trapping him into a lie.
Do you feel that James Comey, in the words of Democrat Congressman Hank Johnson of the great state of Georgia, do you think that Republicans are raking James Comey over the coals? That's his quote.
Well, I like Hank. He and I served together for a long time. But the fact is that when you have new developments of things such as months and months in which they essentially dragged out dating a 302 long after they were essentially using it, these wrongdoings in front of the FISA court, and Comey is directly involved, there's certainly a reason to make the record complete. What I will say, and I challenge Hank Johnson, as new information comes forward, not to let the new Democratic majority in the House shut down the kind of discovery that is necessary in a free democracy.
I mean this with all due respect, and even some of your own colleagues in the House have criticized how this has been handled. Is James Comey better at this than Republicans are? I mean, you've had several bites at the apple. I mean, and 245 times last time either he didn't know or he didn't remember about sometimes basic stuff. I mean, does he have an advantage in any of this that we don't know about?
He has a huge advantage. He has the clock. The administration, if you will, always has the clock, and in this case, the clock is running out. So what would normally be 245, I don't remember, 245 demands to this to the Department of Justice to provide at least some of the information that he says he doesn't remember. There's no time for that, and this Department of Justice, under no real management, continues to withhold information and even cause him to withhold information on those occasions in which he knew something, Harris.
What do you mean, no real management?
Well, it's very clear that between the time President Trump came into office and now, these U.S. attorneys and the FBI have continued to do whatever they want. It's not just the special prosecutor. You know, Jeff Sessions was a good senator, but he clearly did not take control of the Department of Justice, and they continue to withhold information. A good example is even the Fast and Furious investigation that had already been essentially settled by the court. They dragged their feet for over a year trying not to give us the information.
From the House Judiciary Committee? I mean, did you have conversations with him?
Say that again.
Did you talk with him about this, Jeff Sessions?
I did. And, it wasn't an area he was recused, but it was an area in which he allowed the so-called career professionals to continue to not give information that an Obama appointee, Amy Berman Jackson, had told them to give us. So this is a Department of Justice that institutionally continues to not want to cooperate with Congress. This is where the new Attorney General is going to have to come in and at least restore some level of cooperation in Congress's legitimate oversight, and that'll include the Senate and hopefully a Democratic House that still wants to know about people's rights being trampled on.
Congressman Issa, I so appreciate your transparency. I ask these questions because it's so late in 2018, and Republicans have had a shot to get to talk with James Comey. Heck, he's called into public radio. He pretty much talks to everybody. So it's a little hard to believe that we've gotten this deep into 2018 without many answers from him. That's why I asked those questions, and I knew you'd be transparent about it.
No, it's a fair question, and investigation after investigation by myself, my predecessor, Henry Waxman, and others, you see this slowness that happens, and slowness really is the advantage when you have something that has to be investigated. It doesn't matter what the wrongdoing is.
From the great state of California today, Congressman Darrell Issa, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Harris.
Here's a special counsel. Does he want to interview the president?
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. After what they did to Flynn, the way they trapped him into perjury, and no sentence for him, 14 days for Papadopoulos, I did better on traffic violations than they did with Papadopoulos.
So when you say good luck, you're saying no way, no interview.
They're a joke over my dead body.
Giuliani now had a lot to say over the weekend. What do we need to understand about this week? Alan Dershowitz wrote the book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, and the professor's with me now. Sir, good to have you back. Good morning to you. Over my dead body. I think it was the quote of the weekend. Pretty much tells us it's not going to happen. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I think every reasonable defense attorney would give the same advice. We remember very carefully the Martha Stewart case, where they got her for talking to the FBI, and then Flynn. Look, the Flynn case is fascinating. I hope the judge understands when he has the case tomorrow that Flynn did not commit a crime by lying, because the lie has to be material to the investigation. And if the FBI already knew the answer to the question and only asked him the question, in order to give him an opportunity to lie, his answer, even if false, was not material to the investigation.
Well, which raises
lying to the FBI is not a crime.
Why do you lie? I mean, why not just tell the truth, especially if everybody knew what was going on? Just quickly on Giuliani. You saw him on Fox with Chris Wallace. You saw him on ABC with Stephanopoulos. Did he show any cards in either of those interviews, do you think?
Well, I think he has made it very clear the president's finished cooperating. He understands this is an adversarial hearing, that Mueller will do anything to try to get people to sing or perhaps even to compose, and that cooperation is now off the table. It was on the table early on in the investigation, and then it became clear to the Trump defense team that cooperation was getting them nowhere, that they were determined to get Trump by squeezing all the people around him. So I think the cards that were shown yesterday were that this investigation, as far as Trump's concerned, is over unless they try to subpoena him. And then we have a constitutional conflict because Trump asserts Article 2 and other constitutional rights. We go to court and we don't have a Mueller report for a long, long time. So I suspect we're on the way to a Mueller report, which will find no crimes, but will find political sins, which are not the proper function of a special counsel. The Inquisition found sins, but prosecutors are supposed to find only crimes.
Okay, now let's come back to Flynn. What do we need to understand about this sentencing tomorrow?
Well, two things. Number one, that I think the judge has the authority to throw out the plea if he believes that the plea was not to a crime. And I think he should find, as a matter of law, that when you tell an untruth to the FBI about a matter that they already know the truth about, they already know the answer, when the only purpose of the question is to get you to lie, that's not a crime, that's not a material misstatement. But if he doesn't find that, if he doesn't throw it out, and it would take a lot of courage to throw it out, I think we're seeing probably a probationary sentence. Whether we then see a pardon or a commutation afterward, that's a political issue. I'm not familiar with that.
Late on Friday, a lot of folks running around that afternoon, Mueller came out with a statement saying, with regard to these charges of entrapment, a lot of pieces were written last week that Flynn was entrapped in this interview. And the special counsel came out and felt compelled to say, no, this was not entrapment. We were not there to set you up. But what did you, how did that strike you?
Well, I don't think that's right. I think a lot of people are misinterpreting the issue. The question, as Mueller put it, was, did he lie or was he treated unfairly? And the answer to that question is both are true. He did lie. He had the opportunity not to lie. Nobody could figure out why he would lie. He obviously knew there were transcripts. But the second question is, was he treated unfairly? The answer is absolutely yes. Told not to have a lawyer present, made to relax, made to feel that this was just an opportunity to kind of schmooze with some FBI buddies, and then they spring the trap on him. He fell for the trap, but they sprung the trap. They asked him a question to which they already knew the answer, not for purposes of learning the truth, they knew the truth, but for purposes of giving him an opportunity to lie. The question for the American public is, do we want the FBI to be springing morality tests on our citizens, criminal morality tests, giving them the opportunity to lie, giving them the opportunity to tell the truth? That's not a proper function of law enforcement, and I would hope the judge would see that and would say something about that.
Okay, last point on that. I think the question had to do whether or not he talked to the Russian ambassador, right? And within his role, he would have had authority to do that, correct? So had they asked the
question, no question that what he did was legal.
It was legal. So why not tell the truth about it?
You're absolutely right. He should have told the truth. You know, it leads to the possibilities, just the possibility, that maybe he really was not lying. That's what the two FBI agents concluded. Maybe he just momentarily forgot. He didn't seem to be lying. He had no motive to lie. There was no reason to lie. He's an intelligent guy. Maybe he didn't lie. Maybe he told an untruth, which he believed was true at the time. I'm not saying that's the case, but certainly that's a possibility that should be considered as well.
I'm well out of time. Will we get that answer tomorrow when Flynn appears?
I think we'll get some of those answers tomorrow. We won't be able to probe into his mind tomorrow. We'll still never know why a man with his background in intelligence, who knew that the FBI had the information, why he would not just say, hey, yeah, I did it.